morning. Welcome to the King's Report News Hour. And I gave the wrong date yesterday. I could have sworn yesterday was Tuesday. But sources tell me that actually yesterday was Monday and that only today is Tuesday. That's what they say. So I will go along with that. I read it on the internet. So today is the 8th day in the 9th month of Cheonggi, in the 16th, 9th month in the 16th year of Cheonggi, not yesterday. Apologies. Anyway, I hope it didn't confuse anyone else as much as it did me. Let's go to the kingdom and see what's going on here. And right now in Chongpyeong, Tennessee, 47 degrees and light rain. And the rain is going to stop in a little bit, I guess, about an hour or so. A brief morning shower or two, otherwise cloudy and cool. High of 54 today, tonight cloudy with periods of rain. Low of 46 in father's hometown, Cheongju in North Pyongan Province, North Korea, or at least what today is North Korea. Cloudy and 35 right now, getting down to 30 degrees tonight, turning out clear and cold. Tomorrow, chilly with considerable cloudiness, periods of rain in the afternoon, high of 48. At the Cheongung Palace in Northeast Pennsylvania, clear and 33, mostly sunny and breezy today, high of 56, tonight clear and 39 for a low. And then at the Liberty Rock RV Park and Campground in Limestone County, Texas, cloudy and 68, getting up to, getting up to 78 today, partly sunny and humid with a thunderstorm during the midday, breezy this afternoon. Tonight, clear, breezy, and cooler, low of 49. At the the Suncheon Palace in Korea, 48 degrees and clear right now, and then clear and cold. There can be frost in the normally colder spots. It's in Suncheon Palace tonight, getting down to 34 degrees. Tomorrow, plenty of sunshine, a high of 67. At the Gunma Palaces in Japan, clear and 55. Tonight, getting down to 43, clear to partly cloudy and chilly. Tomorrow, intervals of clouds and sunshine, high of 65. Guangzhou, Guangdong Province, 76 and overcast, getting down to, we need to keep forgetting that we need to, I need to refresh this after the 7 o'clock hour Eastern time. 74 degrees overcast, and then getting down to 69 tonight. Tomorrow, some sun, then turning cloudy, high of 82. So it seems that 7 a.m. Eastern time is right at the point where they switch from today's weather to tomorrow's weather. So I need to refresh the screen before I give it to you. All righty then, let's go to Father's Word, see what Father has in store for us today. I'm in the book on blessed families. Blessed families. I'm in chapter number 1, chapter 1. And anyways, it's the subheading where it says that the 축복은 이상 가정 완성에 있다. The blessing is in the completion of ideal families. So if you're looking for it in the English edition, look for that subheading. It's a something .4. I don't know the section number. All right, so let's see what Father's saying about blessing being in the completion of ideal families. 인간에 대한 하나님의 뜻은 창조 목적을 완성하여 창조 이상을 실현하는 것입니다. God's will for human beings is to complete the purpose of creation and to realize, in other words, to substantiate the ideal of creation. Amen to that, right? So God's will for human beings. Someone asks, how do you know what God's will is? Well, here we go. God's will is for us to complete the purpose of creation. Complete the purpose of creation. And what is that? Well, go to Genesis 1:28 for that one. To complete the purpose of creation and to substantiate, or realize what Father says, but make real, to substantiate the ideal of creation. Right. So ideal of creation is just an ideal. It's not in substance, but our purpose is to make that substantial. 창조 이상 시련은 남녀가 결혼해서 사랑으로 하나 되는 것으로 끝나는 것이 아닙니다. Okay, so let's talk about that substantiation of the ideal of creation. The ideal of creation does not end with a man and woman being married and being one through love. Okay, does not end there. Does not end there. 그렇게 된 후에는 아들, 딸을 가져야 합니다. So after that, in other words, after the marriage, you must have son and daughter. 왜 그러냐면 the reason is 천지이치는 상하 천후의 관계가 연결되는 것이기 때문입니다. Someone's trying to get in our door. The reason is that the 천지이치, so the sort of the law of heaven and earth, or the sort of the reason of heaven and earth, is for upper and lower and for front and back relationships to be connected. 어제가 있으면 내일이 있고 오늘이 있으면 내일이 있는 것입니다. So if there's a yesterday, there's today, and if there's today, there will be a tomorrow. 연결돼야 됩니다. So everything must be connected. 그렇기 때문에 부부끼리만 가지고는 오늘은 있어도 내일은 없습니다. So if it's only husband and wife, then you may have today, but there is no tomorrow. And 내일이 없으면 모든 것이 끝나는 것입니다. So if there is no tomorrow, then everything ends. 그래서 천지이치는 상하가 겸해야 좌우가 됩니다. So that is why in the law of heaven, or in the reason, or the sort of the principle of heaven, there has to be upper and lower, so that there can also be a left and a right. All right, so praise God. Yes, and Father's, addressing something very important there, which is that, there are people who today who say, I don't want to get married. I received life from my parents, but I have no intention of passing that life on to the next generation. And I've been hearing people for a long, long time saying, you know what, I don't want to bring a baby into this terrible, terrible world. Well, that's no excuse, because bringing a baby into the world gives us hope, And I think those people are extremely selfish, and they're just making an excuse for their selfishness. It is important that we create two-parent heterosexual families, and two heterosexual parents. Maybe I should say it that way: two heterosexual parent families, right? With children. Now, Father says son and daughter. Well, not everyone has a son, not everyone has a daughter, but you get the idea. And if you don't have a daughter, then don't worry. When your sons get married, you'll have plenty of daughters. Or if you don't have a son, don't worry. When your daughters get married, you'll have plenty of sons. So it all works out in the end. Okay. All right, so let's see what's going on. Of course, President Trump spent the day today in Japan, and let's check out and see what went on there. Yesterday, he arrived and we saw him meeting the emperor, and today was basically the important day. And there he is with Prime Minister Takaichi, the newly elected, just fresh out of the box. Prime Minister was elected or chosen by the lower house of parliament just a few days ago. Of course, she's been around, she's quite an experienced politician, and this was not even her first attempt to become prime minister. She tried last time, but she lost out to Ishiba. So Ishiba served about a year or so, and then he now passed the baton to Takaichi just in time for her to receive President Trump to Japan. Praised Nobel nominations and promises of foreign investment in the U.S., Japan's newly elected Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi rolled out the red carpet for Donald Trump on Tuesday. Some people have difficulty pronouncing her name. Just take it one Japanese syllable at a time. And Japanese is a very easy language to pronounce. It's not Chinese, or it's not even Korean. Korean is much more difficult to pronounce than Japanese. So it's Takaichi. Very simple, okay? Red carpet for Donald Trump on Tuesday. Trump, in turn, had warm praise for Takaichi, telling her that the U.S. would be there for anything you want, any favors you need, anything to help Japan. Whoa, yeah. Maybe she could pull out a list. Well, no. Here's a list. Yes, I don't know about. Okay. The two leaders signed a critical mineral earths deal, as well as a document heralding a new golden age of U.S.-Japan relations, which reiterated the commitment of the two countries to implement deals struck earlier, including the 15% tariff deal negotiated earlier this year. The pageantry and the venue also seemed tailor-made for the U.S. president. A full military guard of honor and band welcomed Trump to the ornate Akasaka Palace, with its vaulted ceilings and gold-encrusted walls, not unlike what President wants in his planned White House ballroom. Over lunch, which a White House readout described as American rice and American beef, deliciously made with Japanese ingredients, Trump congratulated Takaichi for becoming Japan's first female prime minister. Trump has long demanded that Japan buy rice from the U.S. Well, not only Trump, but I think just about every president since the 1980s, beginning probably, I think, with President Reagan. Anyway, this has been a constant issue between Japan and the United States, and also between South Korea and the United States as well, by the way. I can't tell the difference between rice grown in Japan and rice grown in California. That is to say, the Japanese brine. They have some of the brands are Japanese brands, even though they're grown in California. What's it? Can't remember the brands right now, but also South Korea. But my wife claims she can tell the difference between South Korean rice and California rice, but I doubt it. I certainly cannot tell the difference. Yeah. Anyway, so they have demanded that Japan buy rice from the U.S. Takaichi also accompanied Trump aboard a U.S. aircraft carrier, the USS George Washington, where they were greeted by thousands of cheering American troops. Takaichi took the stage and praised what she called the greatest alliance in the world, and pledged to increase defense spending. Trump has in the past criticized Japan's lack of defense spending. In April this year, Trump had criticized the security treaty with Japan as one-sided, saying we pay billions of dollars to defend them, but they don't pay anything. I don't know if she brought receipts, but it's probably not the case. Anyway, ahead of their meeting on Wednesday, Trump said he was sure that he would have a fantastic relationship with Takaichi, who had a strong connection with former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, a Trump favorite. She was a great ally and friend of Abe, who was my friend. He was one of the best. I know they were very close, and I think philosophically they were close, which is very good, he told reporters while flying over to Japan from Malaysia on Tuesday. Yes, in the past, just actually immediately before he was killed, Abe endorsed Takaichi for prime minister, or for president of the LDP, which effectively is prime minister. And so, yes, it's very widely known that she is a close protege of Abe. Trump is spending a week in Asia and will leave Japan for South Korea on Wednesday. He is expected to meet Chinese leader Xi Jinping there on Thursday. Right. Okay. And that meeting with Xi Jinping is really the big highlight of this week, in my opinion. He had ASEAN in Malaysia, and he had, of course, Takaichi in Japan, and he's going to meet with Lee Jae-myung, of course, in Korea. But the big one is Xi Jinping. And even if uh, Kim Jong-un shows up, which is kind of doubtful, but although you can never tell what North Korea is going to do, even if he does, still the meeting with Xi Jinping will well trump that. Sorry about that. Okay. Um, you know, mentioning Kim Jong Un, it doesn't look like he's going to show up because, well, for one thing, his foreign minister is visiting Moscow right now, and you would expect that if the head of the country is going to meet a uh, foreign head of a government or state, the foreign minister should be there. And since the North Korean foreign minister is currently out of pocket, so to speak, and visiting Moscow and talking to Putin, um, doesn't look like Kim Jong Un is going to be meeting Trump. But Trump said, "Hey, you know what? I can extend my visit. I can, if he wants to wait until his foreign minister." Well, he didn't say that, but he did say that he can extend his visit and wait for Kim Jong Un a bit if he wants to meet. So anyway, Xi Jinping on Thursday though is still the big one, the big one. And maybe Kim Jong Un will wait until he sees the result of the meeting with Xi Jinping. I don't know. I don't know why I would do that, but North Korea. Anyway, it's little sister that's going to decide. Kim Yo Jong that's going to decide, probably, in my opinion. In my opinion, I have no idea actually. Okay. It's just my impression. The meeting with Trump was seen as a critical early test for Takaichi, who was elected as prime minister by Japanese lawmakers earlier this month. Both countries have long been allies, but navigating a relationship with a fickle Trump. Well, this is BBC, so they want to stick that word in there just to sort of take a swipe at him. Who has in the past appeared to waver in his commitment to Japan, lies at the core of the country's foreign policy. On Wednesday, I don't think Trump really wavered. It's just that he does, he has a pattern of demanding more from allies, both in Europe and in Asia. And I think that is the right thing to do. Just because a country is an ally doesn't mean that we have to kiss them every time we meet them, right? Trump is saying, well, come on, you guys got to pull your weight. We're in a situation here, and you have to increase your defense spending, and you have to be serious about defending your own country. And what's wrong with that? I mean, there's nothing wrong with saying that to an ally, but BBC says, "Oh, it's fickle. Oh, he wavered." No, I don't agree with that. On Wednesday, Takaichi. No, Tuesday. Okay, so all right. See there, I'm not the only one who gets my dates mixed up. Today is Tuesday, right? Let's just check the calendar here. Yep, today is Tuesday. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Today is Tuesday. So, well, that makes me feel better. BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation, does not know what day it is. All right, that's great. On Wednesday, or I'm sorry, Tuesday, in the rest of the world, outside of the BBC headquarters, Takaichi described Trump as a partner in a new golden era and praised his role in bringing peace to the Middle East. She announced that Japan would be nominating him for the Nobel Peace Prize. She also presented Trump with a collection of golf-related gifts, according to Trump's assistant, Margot Martin. These include a golf bag. Okay, I'm going to skip that. In turn, Trump described her as a close friend and described the U.S. alliance with Japan as a beautiful friendship that was born out of the ashes of a terrible war. Okay, well, just sort of reminding them that, yeah, we beat you guys last time. Born out of the ashes of a terrible war. Yeah. Well, I'm a little bit surprised he would say it that way because often in Korea, of course, uh, American and South Korean leaders talk about how the relationship was born out of a terrible war, and that, of course, refers to the Korean War, where Korea and the United States fought together. But here he's referring to a war where Japan and the United States fought against each other. I don't know. Is that really the best way to go about this? Reminding them, hey, we beat you guys. I don't know. Pleasantries have set a positive tone. If I were in Japan, I would be a little bit uncomfortable with that expression. All right. It's been what, 80 years now? Why keep bringing that up? Pleasantries have set a positive tone to the meeting so far, but behind the smiles and pageantry, there is real pressure on Japan. Trump wants more access to Japanese markets, especially cars, agriculture, and tech. He's pressing Japan to buy more American rice and soybeans and to open its market to U.S. vehicles. Well, we've talked about, I've talked about, U.S. cars before, and I think one author made a very good point, saying that when Europeans sell cars in Japan, right, they put the steering wheel on the other side. Americans don't. So, in other words, they in Japan, cars drive on the left. So if the steering wheel is on the left, as it is in the United States, right? Because in the US, you drive it on the right. If the steering wheel is on the left, it's a little bit difficult. And it takes a little bit of adjusting, I suppose. And it might even be a little bit more dangerous, I would think, because, when you make your right turn, right? When you make a right turn, you're going across traffic like that. Um, anyway, that's I think U.S. car manufacturers have something to answer there. And they'll say, "Oh, well, the market is so small, we don't want to make." But what about the Europeans then? Okay. Anyway, agriculture and tech buy more rice and soybeans and to open its market to U.S. vehicles. Tokyo is heavily reliant on exports and cannot afford a tariff fight, especially when it comes to its auto industry. Automakers, the country's largest exporter to the U.S., faced 24% tariffs and tens of billions of dollars in losses. I saw a story, I'm sorry, it was a headline actually, that Toyota may start importing Toyota cars from the United States to Japan. Hmm. So that might be something, okay. Toyota, of course, is manufacturing cars in the U.S., and if they start importing from the US into Japan, that might be a way to sort of contribute to a solution to this problem. Okay. Anyway, we'll see if that happens. Tariffs have now been lowered to 15% in step with rivals in the region, such as South Korea. Okay. During the working lunch, where they're holding hands, watch out there, Trump. During the working lunch, Takaichi presented Trump with a map showing the investments that Japanese companies have made in the U.S. And during his speech on the USS George Washington, Trump said Takaichi had told him earlier about plans for Toyota to put $10 billion into building plants, quote, all over, unquote, in the U.S. But Takaichi also needs to protect domestic industries and doesn't want to anger crucial interest groups at home like the powerful farming lobby. Yeah, so perhaps that's what this is. Perhaps part of that $10 billion is going to go into building Toyota factories in the US that will export cars to Japan. That's kind of my guess here. It sounds like maybe that's what's happening. Tomohiko Taniguchi, former special advisor to Shinzo Abe, said there were things that Takaichi could draw on from Trump's relationship with her late mentor, Abe. He said it was important for Takaichi to be straightforward and say bluntly what Japan's national interests are, and to see where those two nations' national interests overlap, and always mindful that Japan's safety must be in the hands of the Japanese. But Takaichi won't just have to balance Japan's interests and its alliances with the US, she'll also have to do that while maintaining the country's crucial trade relationship with China. Rintaro Nishimura, senior associate at the Asia Group, said Takaichi will have to walk a very fine line, maybe tone down some of her more hawkish tendencies on China, but also assure Trump that the US-Japan relationship is the most important. Right, okay. Well, we'll see what happens there then. Okay, we'll see what happens. Okay. Anyway, there they are. Yep. Okay. Now, let's go to South Korea. South Korea's president faces high-stakes diplomacy at APEC summit. Well, let's see here. Okay, all right. Let's do this. Okay. South Korea's new president will host leaders from 20 countries for the upcoming Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit, where the American and Chinese leaders are set to hold a high-stakes meeting on the sidelines. Actually, the APEC is being held in Gyeongju, and then I believe last I heard, Xi Jinping and Trump are going to meet in Busan, which is just a short drive from Gyeongju. The two-day annual APEC summit, which opens in Gyeongju on Friday, is likely to test Lee Jae-myung's diplomatic abilities as he faces tough foreign policy challenges. Lee, in office less than 5 months, seeks to get along with friends and rivals alike with his self-proclaimed pragmatic diplomacy, but prospects for greater cooperation with China and Tokyo are in doubt due to Trump's tariff war and the election of a new ultra-conservative leader in Japan. This is who wrote this? Story by Kim. Okay, well, who wrote this? Who published this? I'll bet it's AFP. What do you think? Let's look at the bottom here. Oh, they don't tell us. Is it MSN then? Anyway, this ultra-conservative nonsense. Okay, she's not ultra-conservative. Okay, so anyway, they always want to take shots at the people they don't like. Okay, let's see here. Where are we? Okay, tensions with North Korea remain high after Pyongyang snubbed Lee's overture and bolstered ties with Russia and China instead. In Gyeongju, Lee is expected to hold one-on-one meetings with U.S. President Donald Trump, Chinese President Xi Jinping, and the new Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi while presiding over APEC events. Experts say the summit may offer positive optics for Lee, but it doesn't guarantee long-term diplomatic success. Well, people will forget about this in 6 months. A joint declaration in U.S.-China tensions, this year's APEC summit, first in South Korea in 20 years, is overshadowed by Thursday's Trump-Xi meeting, whose results are expected to have a major impact on the global economy. And that's why I say, that meeting is actually, as I was saying yesterday, what was I saying? Jacob at the Fort of Jabbok, what was I saying? Ali versus Frazier for the world boxing, heavyweight world boxing championship. It's the big one, yes, because it's going to have a major impact on the global economy, not just for 1 or 2 years, but I think for a long, long time, perhaps decades to come. So that's the whole purpose of this thing here. And Trump going to Malaysia, Trump going to Japan, he's getting a lot of sort of energy there, and then he can go into the meeting with Xi Jinping on Thursday with all that energy. And I hope that Lee Jae-myung does not subtract from that energy. He could be a bit of a downer with his leftist. Well, I'll say it too. If they call Takaichi ultra conservative, I'll call Lee Jae-myung ultra leftist. All right. Trump will likely skip APEC's main conference, but experts say Lee could still align with other countries to promote free trade and multilateralism. Now, the term multilateralism is being used and to sort of imply or to mean a moving away from a world dominated by the United States or effectively governed by the United States, a world where the president of the United States is effectively president of the world. That's what it's being used to mean. And China keeps emphasizing, and it's still emphasizing, that we're moving towards a multipolar world. And that means essentially the same thing, except that China goes a step further and saying, okay, we're one of the poles. You got the United States is, okay, we'll let you remain as one pole. We're going to be a second pole. Who's going to be another pole, right? Who else? Basically the two. But the thing about the Communist Party, not just the Chinese Communist Party, but any Communist Party, is that there's no such thing as multipolar. There's only one pole, and that's the Chinese. That is the Communist Party. Whether if you're in Soviet Union or in China or in what else, Cuba or Venezuela, North Korea, there's only one pole. And so when China says multipolar, their meaning is that okay, we can be equal poles for now, but we're going to dominate you and we're going to push you down. We're going to raise ourselves up so that we are the dominant force in the world, that we will dominate the world. And what do they call it again? Socialism for a new era with Chinese characteristics and Xi Jinping thought will be the thought and the philosophy for world governance. This is what the Chinese Communist Party means. A multilateralism is kind of the same. It's sort of more of a watered down version of the same thing. Right. Now, it's true that, compared to the 50s and 60s or even the 70s, a lot of countries have become much more affluent and they've closed the economic gap between themselves and the United States. So in that sense, there's certainly a need for other countries to be able to speak and pursue their national interests. And certainly, I think that the United Nations needs to be reformed in many, many ways. But one of the ways that it needs to be reformed is that the five permanent members of the Security Council need to be adjusted, right? I mean, why is France there? Okay, why is France there? Because they're recognized as one of the victorious countries of World War II. That's the only reason. Why is the United Kingdom among the five permanent members with the veto power in the United Nations? Again, because they're recognized as one of the, and China, well, initially it was the Republic of China and Taiwan that had that seat. Now Beijing has taken it over. But India has long said that they deserve to be on the Security Council, and I don't blame them. And Japan also has those ambitions, and other countries I think as well. I think Brazil, for example, and perhaps take one African country, maybe Nigeria, perhaps Nigeria, but I don't know, but perhaps Nigeria, if they stop killing Christians. Nigeria has massacred over 100,000 Christians over the last several years. It hasn't been reported, but they're they do have that problem. Anyway, so multilateralism basically it means moving away from a world governed or dominated by the United States. South Korean officials say they've been holding ministerial level communications with other countries to prod all 21 to issue a joint declaration at the end of the summit in an effort not to repeat the failure to reach one in 2018 in Papua New Guinea due to US-China discord over trade. Of course, there are some lingering issues, but many have been resolved. We're making efforts toward the adoption of a Kyungju Declaration and acting as a mediator between the US and China, South Korea's National Security Director Lee Song-lak told local broadcaster KBS on Sunday. Top South Korean officials have been recently flying in and out of Washington to finalize a trade agreement with the US, but it's unclear if the two countries can strike one in time for the APEC summit. South Korea's Trade Minister Kim Jong-un told lawmakers Friday that Washington and Seoul remain sharply divided over how much of South Korea's promised $350 billion US investment package should be provided as direct cash payment under a July deal aimed at averting the Trump administration's highest tariffs. There are also worries that South Korea's ties with Japan could turn sour because of the recent inauguration of Japan's Takaichi, who has right-wing views on her country's wartime aggressions. And those are that, as I've mentioned before, that World War II was a righteous war for Japan because they were liberating Asia from Western colonialism, and that's the big one. But also, the Nanking Massacre or Nanjing Massacre did not take place, and other such things. Okay, so yeah, that kind of, Korea, China, Taiwan, Southeast Asia, they kind of disagree on many of those things. Okay. Um, Relations between Asian neighbors and their trilateral military cooperation with the US have improved in recent years, but Seoul-Tokyo ties have previously experienced on-again, off-again setbacks due to grievances stemming from Japan's past colonial rule of the Korean Peninsula. There are also questions about whether a trilateral Seoul-Tokyo Washington partnership would continue to grow amid Trump's America First policy. Kim Tae-hyung, a professor at Seoul's Sungsil University, said Seoul and Tokyo are more likely to continue to tighten cooperation as they both struggle to deal with Trump's unilateral push to reset the global trade order and American security commitments to them. So, I sort of gave a very way out of the box opinion a few days ago about, United States and North Korea maybe working together. That would be a diplomatic nuclear bomb on South Korea if the U.S. and North Korea were to, actually do something and somehow the U.S. Easing its sanctions against North Korea in return, for example, for rare earth metals from North Korea. That would be quite something. South Korea would be quite shocked. But given the fact that South Korea has elected a leftist president, it may be the medicine that the South Korean people need to wake up and realize that they cannot take the United States for granted. And I just wonder if that's why President Trump is repeatedly sort of implying, or not just implying, but saying that he wants to meet Kim Jong-un during this trip. And even during one of the sort of press gaggles or meeting with the press in Air Force One, he did say, "Well, we've got the sanctions. So does that imply that he's willing to negotiate the sanctions?" Could be. I hope Kim Yo-jong, the little sister, is astute enough to understand that there is a possible opening here for North Korea. Anyway, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Yeah. Hey, guys, you heard it here first, all right? If it happens. If it happens. Okay. Okay. Anyway, let's pray for God's will to be done. I have no idea what God wants. Okay, but it could be that this might be in God's will. I don't know. Okay. So Sungsil University said Seoul and Tokyo are more likely to continue to tighten cooperation as they both struggle to deal with Trump's unilateral push to reset the global trade order and American security commitments to them. Oh Hyun-ju, a deputy South Korean national security director, told reporters Monday that there likely wouldn't be enough time to organize a trilateral meeting with Lee, Trump, and Takaichi. Restarting diplomacy between Trump and North Korea leader Kim Jong-un would potentially help Lee's push to reconcile with North Korea. But, what I'm talking about would go way over Lee Jae-myung's head. And it would, he would be quite shocked if that were to take place. Right? It's not something that he'd be able to take credit for. During campaigning, Lee said he would support Trump's efforts to restore diplomacy with Kim, saying that improved ties between Pyongyang and Washington could allow aid projects for the impoverished North that would likely need South Korean funding. Well, that's certainly true, and True Father has mentioned that South Korea does need to give a lot of love to North Korea if things start to open up like that. Yeah. Of course, the basic condition that North Korea is demanding is that it be recognized as a nuclear nation. And even that, President Trump recently has been saying, hey, well, yeah, they have nuclear weapons. We know that. So that's different from, the diplomats saying that, but still, the president of the United States is saying, yeah, okay, yeah. If you're talking about whether or not you have nuclear weapons, yeah, we know you've got nuclear weapons. We know how many you have. He said, I know everything about North Korea. He said, basically, not in those exact words, but something like that. So basically, he's trying to take that issue off the table. He says, well, let's not get stuck on that. It basically seems to be what Trump is saying. Let's not get stuck on the nuclear thing. But right after Trump said that, some guys in the State Department came out and said, no, whoa, whoa, no. Our policy is still denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Okay, well, you guys go back into your closet. Come on. Trump is trying to change the world here. Right? Anyway, so it's interesting. Trump seems to want to do something with North Korea. He's not the kind of guy to just meet Kim Jong-un for a photo op, right? That's not Trump's style anyway. And he's already had that in his first term. So, yeah. And even he said, I can go there. What does go there mean? Does it mean go to Pyongyang? Of course, the press is saying, no. Surely he means go to Panmunjom like he did during the first term. But hey, who knows, right? Who knows? I mean, he stepped over the line technically into North Korean territory during his first term. Would he take Air Force One to what's the name of the Pyongyang airport? I've forgotten the name of it, but to the airport in Pyongyang? I don't know. We're getting so far out of the box now. Right now, I don't even know where I am. Okay. Well, en route to Asia, but hey, that's where Trump thrives, outside the box, right? Well, en route to Asia, Trump told reporters aboard Air Force One on Friday that he's open to meeting with Kim, saying he had a great relationship with him. North Korea has not responded, but Kim suggested last month that he could meet Trump again if the U.S. withdraws denuclearization of North Korea as a precondition for talks. Okay, well, yeah. So Trump is saying, hey, okay, you've got nuclear weapons, right? I acknowledge that. What more do you want? Oh said Seoul sees little chance of a Trump-Kim meeting on the occasion of the APEC, but she noted that South Korea would have contingency plans ready if the two leaders decided to meet in the future. Their third and last meeting in June 2019 was arranged at the inter-Korean border village of Panmunjom a day after Trump posted a tweet message inviting Kim to the border. Xi's visit will mark his first trip to South Korea in 11 years. Xi Jinping, by the way, has been to South Korea more often than he's been to North Korea. North Korea is a thorn in the side of China, basically. Yeah. And that, by the way, also could come up in Xi Jinping Trump talks. I may be way, 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 way off here. I don't know. But where am I? But Trump could say to Xi Jinping, listen, we know that North Korea is a thorn in your guy's side, okay? So why don't I don't know. But there could be some kind of a deal between Trump and Xi involving North Korea. I'm just saying, I don't know what that would be, but it seems like there's an opening there. Lee is expected to seek to boost economic and other ties with China, South Korea's biggest trading partner, observers say. And this would really, Trump and still talking about Trump and Kim Jong-un. This would really change the security dynamic in East Asia completely. if I'm talking about U.S. making a deal with North Korea where U.S. is importing rare earth metals from North Korea, okay, and North Korea obviously has to do something, and there are a lot of things that North Korea can do, and maybe something to do with a nuclear thing, right? Maybe put the nuclear weapons under international supervision or something like that. The IAEA, International Agency. What is it? IAEA. What does it stand for? Atomic Energy Agency. That's it. Atomic Energy Agency or administration. So there are a bunch of things that North Korea can do in return for rare earth minerals, in return for U.S. Paying money to North Korea. Whereas U.S. has to be assured that any money that gets paid does not go into developing new missiles that can strike New York. That would be nice, right? So that's why the IAEA has to be involved. I don't know. It's opening up North Korean society. Somehow, if Trump could do something that would open up North Korean society, where North Koreans realize what actually is being done to them in comparison with other countries, that would certainly destabilize the North Korean regime, and you could bring about some kind of a regime change over a relatively short period of time. Anyway, so why does Trump want to meet Well, why does he want to meet Kim Jong Un, right? To talk denuclearization again? He knows Kim Jong Un's not going to yield on that. So why does he want to meet him? North Korea has a lot of resources, including rare earth minerals. Anyway, so let's see what happens. It's going to get interesting, perhaps. Perhaps. Okay. Okay, and Lee is expected to boost economic and other ties with China, Korea's biggest trading partner. China, a locked-in rival with the U.S., likely sees the need to improve relations with South Korea and Japan. That possibly gives South Korea more diplomatic leverage, allows it to manage its relations with Washington, Beijing, and Tokyo more effectively, said Jong-Hun Min, a professor at Seoul's National Diplomatic Academy. Right. All right. South Korea's approach is to strengthen cooperation with the U.S. on a robust alliance and on that foundation manage relations with China and other major countries. Min said the attendance of leaders from all major countries at this APEC summit provides a good opportunity to advance such pragmatic diplomacy. All major countries? Well, Russia is not going to be there. Putin is not going to be there. Is he no longer a major country? Possibly, yes, possibly. Right. All major countries. Come on, Mr. Mean. Don't be so mean. Okay. All right. So that is South Korea and the APEC. All right. Yeah. So it could get interesting. Yeah. Let's take a look at this. Taiwan general warns military drills could be preparation for blockade or war, vows to resist. Okay, so Taiwan also is making its presence known, and that's important. Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense said China has been conducting training missions in the Western Pacific aimed at limiting U.S. and allied military access. All right, so that's going on as China continuously and basically always is doing this. It's not just once in a while. Okay. Sun said Taiwan has prepared a series of responses if the People's Liberation Army provocations escalate into acts of war and has detailed plans to counter and survive a potential Chinese naval blockade. Right. And a lot of people are saying, well, China is not going to actually invade Taiwan. They're just going to use propaganda to convince the Taiwanese to join them. And that is Plan A. And I think that's become quite clear that that is Plan A. But the people of Taiwan have elected a president who wants to declare independence. And he's goes a step further than his predecessor, who was saying that we're not going to declare independence, but he wants to actually declare it, which China has said is a red line, and is going to cause um, that's going to trigger an invasion if Taiwan ever does that. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. It depends partly on what's going on internally within China. Xi Jinping seems to have successfully managed the fourth plenum, and that was kind of a big sort of a hurdle. A lot of rumors going on around, about him being in the hospital and all that kind of stuff. And then now, 2 years from now, he has another big meeting coming up with the rubber stamp parliament of China. And so there will be more rumors about him being in the hospital, and there will be more rumors about him having a heart attack, and more rumors about this, that, and the other thing, about how someone else has actually taken over and Xi Jinping is just a figurehead, this kind of thing. But people that I watch on YouTube say that actually the Chinese Communist Party likes it that way. They like for these rumors to be going around because it gives people hope that they can reform, that they will reform, or they can reform. It gives people hope. So they like giving people that kind of false hope. Okay? So anyway, we'll see what happens with Xi Jinping going on. But Plan B, of course, then is to actually absorb Taiwan with military means. But the cost of that will be so great, cost in terms of China's international position. Right now, they're trying to present themselves as, oh, we're the peacemakers. We don't ever invade other countries, and we have stability in our nation, and everything is going so nice here, and everything like that. And so that kind of an image of China would be destroyed if they were to use military force and presumably shoot and kill a lot of people in Taiwan, civilians in Taiwan. So we'll see how it finally works out. But that is clearly Plan B, and the Taiwan military is, of course, preparing for that kind of a situation. Okay. Let's see. Don't have much time left, but let's look at this story on Ukraine, at least a little bit. So here, this responsible statecraft. Now, I don't know about this publication. I wonder if it's a propaganda outlet for Russia. I wonder. But anyway, they're responsible statecraft. Right. Let me look this up, because now, just as I start to read this, I get a little bit concerned that this could be a propaganda outfit of the Quincy Institute. What's the Quincy Institute? A responsible statecraft emphasizes diplomacy, military restraint, and cooperation in U.S. foreign policy, advocating for a world where peace is prioritized over conflict. Okay, sounds good, but I'm always skeptical of people who sound good. Okay, all right. The Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft plays a crucial role in promoting these principles. Okay, where are they located? Okay, tax ID number. All right, so it's a 501c3 organization. Okay, founded in 2019. Okay. Let me just see whether it looks like, so far it looks good. Just want to see where they're located. They don't seem to give an address. Is there an about us? Mark Thompson. Washington politics. Didn't give an address, which is unfortunate. About us. Okay, here we go. Staff. Still don't give an address. That concerns me. Normally, I have a address, but I don't see one. All right, well, let's look for the Quincy Institute. I'm sorry to take up much time, but I want to know who I'm reading. I probably should have done this before we started, but just suddenly I just realized that. Okay, here we go. Wikipedia. 501c3. Well, if they have a 501c3, you'd think that they would have an address. All right. Organization located in Washington, D.C. Okay, well, all right, well, that's good enough. Located in Washington, D.C. for now. Okay. All right. So now that we know about that, let's go to their story on Ukraine. Let's see here. Okay. So the title is On Russia, Ukraine, the misdiagnosed patient is flatlining, they're saying. And I don't have time here, but their main point is that the U.S. has gotten Russian intent wrong from the very beginning. That Putin is not simply out to grab more territory. Rather, he is looking at the situation as a security problem, a security threat for his country. And the United States and NATO needs to realize this. And that's a different, and most, I think, of NATO have been saying that, well, Putin just wants more and more territory, more and more territory. He wants to recreate the Soviet Union. That's how NATO is seeing it, and this article is arguing against that. And here, let's just look at a couple of paragraphs before we run out of time. With the imposition of new U.S. sanctions on Russian oil producers and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent's dismissal of visiting Russian envoy Kirill Dmitriev as a propagandist, the Trump administration's efforts to end the war in Ukraine seem to be hanging by a thread. Their success or failure will depend on a simple premise: one must understand the problem in order to resolve it. Unfortunately, the West has been misdiagnosing the problem it faces in Ukraine for more than a decade, with increasingly tragic consequences. At the same time in which President Trump can correct the diagnosis, and corresponding policy prescription is quickly running out. Since at least 2014, the year of Ukraine's Maidan's revolution and Russia's subsequent decision to annex Crimea, 2014 will be during the Obama administration, and back separatist fighters in the Donbas region, the West foreign policy stalwarts have regarded Russia's military actions against Ukraine as something that President Putin views as an elective and unprovoked ambition to acquire land and rebuild an empire that is little more than a product of Russia's authoritarian impulses. As a result of this diagnosis, they have focused their efforts on raising the cost of that. Okay, but The more this approach has failed to bear fruit, the more its proponents have insisted on applying even greater economic battlefield and diplomatic pressure. Okay. But they're saying the Russian invasion of Ukraine is less a deterrence problem, a modern day replay of the aggressive expansionism typified by Nazi Germany, than it is an escalatory spiral problem, the kind of security dilemma in which parties pursue what they regard as prudent protective measures that are in turn perceived as threatening by others. This produces a cycle of actions and reaction in which each party is convinced it is acting defensively and descend into conflict, much like what happened in the prelude to World War I. So this is actually the most important paragraph in this story. All right, don't have time for anything more. Anyway, I encourage you to maybe to go look at it, to read it yourself if you have time. Maybe I'll put it in the YouTube. I'll put a link in the YouTube version of this video. Okay, so that's it for today. I'll see you tomorrow. God bless, Godspeed. May His kingdom come quickly.